All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just wet sanding Joe, and hopefully it's the final sanding stages of Darren 68 Barracuda hardtop. So all my body work's done. If you see this real light coating here, this was some darker epoxy primer that I had left over, and I just misted the whole car with it as my gun was running out, and you can kind of see where it gets darker and lighter and whatever. But at least now I can see when I'm doing my wet sanding, once all that's gone, this dude's ready to paint. I'm probably not going to seal this car, and the reason is it has 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 coats of primer that have been sanded off and reapplied, sanded off and reapplied. So the last time around we put 2 full wet coats on it, actually 3 on some of the bodywork areas that we had to touch up, and there's not a lot of cut throughs. There won't be very many cut throughs if there's any at all. I'm also going with this color red. That's Matador red, the original red on this car. You can see it again on the under hood section. So engine bay, I've already done that. I've already done the jam, so I got to tape all that back off, and I'll probably end up sanding this area and reshooting it since it's here for my lichens. But I rolled the car out and I washed it off. Let me get that stuff out of there, whatever. Just like he said, checking over everything as I sand. I know I've got a little, that little thing right there. I can go ahead and put my spot putty in it before doing my final wet sand over it, and it'll level it right out. And I can just mist a little primer on it if I need to. I got to get the rest of my fender bolts in because I wanted to actually sandblast them, have them in place with a little primer on them, so when this all gets painted, they are painted in place, and there won't be any me trying to tighten them and move them and adjust them later. But today's about wet sanding, so my makeshift paint booth, y'all may have saw my short on that. That's like a 20 foot by 12 foot or something tarp. I left this front section open for now, and reason being, my wood stove's right here, and y'all say, oh, it's an old ugly wood stove. It is what it is. You can load this sucker down. It's even got an oil dripper if I want to do that, but that thing will put off a lot of heat and a lot of dry heat. And I've painted in the past in here before, and you could even see around the edge of the air inlet, it sucks paint. It sucks. It's not blowing this stuff out. I need to vacuum some of the old crispy off of it, but that's before painting. That's not today. Today's wet sanding. And then I've got my 220 heater on the wall there. So I'll either put my ventilation behind the car, or I can put it under that door. So all I'm doing is rolling the door up, and I got a set of box fans and a board to block off the rest of that. If I do it here, that door actually rolls up and touches the visqueen up here, so it blocks off that top section, so it would forever be pulling paint that way. Ideally, I think I want to put it back here, but if the wind's blowing out of the west and I've got those fans there sucking, it still might cause some problems here for me. So if that's the case, I'll put it on that side. That's my thinking behind that, and it's usually worked. I've used all kinds of exhaust fans in the past before, but did I tell you today's about wet sanding? I had to start somewhere, so I started on the top, and I've got my Durablock, and that's a sheet of 400. I'm finished sanding this car with 400 wet everywhere, and I was just doing a nice little X pattern on the top, be sure I didn't have any dents. You can see a few highs coming through here, but I'm pretty sure I got enough material on here to take care of that. So I know I did my director metal on here, probably 2 coats, and then my 2K 2 coats, and everything's dried. Man, it's been 3 or 4 weeks now, so it shouldn't be shrinking up any. The majority of the shrinkage has already happened. So I just got that, went ahead and dried that back off, so you can kind of tell my textured spots are darker. I'll just keep pushing on. Good old 3M. J-Bo at Bad Tree Productions has fixed me up here, and I can boogie down. Here, your eyes don't deceive you. This line is fading in and out, in and out, in and out. So I'm gonna keep knocking that off. I'm gonna knock that off. And here I've got my rubber flat squeegee, the good old 3M. And you always put the letters towards you. That way you're not sanding with them. So much nicer than all the dust in the world. Uh-oh. So this half of my roof is mostly done, like 99%. I got a few little tiny uglies like that. Through here, I got my 800 Scotch-Brite, and I put in my put my rubber squeegee in the middle of it, and really ran through it, washed it out, and then I blew it out with my blowgun pretty quick because I don't want. See, I have bare metal here, and I was trying to get most of the primer off of this, because your chrome's going to wrap over it, and I don't want 27 layers of primer and paint. You know, you get 6 coats of paint and primer, base and clear anyway, and beyond that, you would have all the coats of primer. So I tried to take a lot of the primer off. Got a few little lows like that and that. There. I just wanted to get it nice and dry so I could see what was going on. But for the most part now, I can take my soft sander sponge and run over the whole thing one more time. Watch out for spots like that that are trying to come through. But man, it feels wonderful. I still got to wash the whole thing, and I still got to get stuff like that. When it gets towards the top here, it gets harder to reach, but that's fine. I'll probably be able to get it from the other side. There's a center point, so I'm already there. Then I did my sail panel around the back of this really well. I need to get my Scotch-Brite again and go through here. Those are all the fun parts that, if they don't get sanded, the paint, you know, will flake away. But all that feels smooth. I went ahead and did this, and I sanded over. This was mostly my soft sander. Kind of run over that gap. I still have to go through there and knock off those kind of chunkiness that my old masking tape left. So I'll probably pop the door open and do that real gently with a worn out piece of 400, so I'm not cutting too much. I may go ahead and do this quarter now because I can do some of it from a chair maybe, but otherwise I'll be able to lean over and do this top half here pretty easily. Instead of stretching and reaching, I'm trying to divide my workload so that, you know, like this is going to be easy. You just stand here and do it. Up here you stretch. Down here it's pretty easy along there. Once it goes downward, I can jack the car on back up if I need to, but I don't want to keep flowing up, down, down. So moving onward, I'm at least trying to divide her in half. I don't need an easy one right now. My back feels good. Everything feels good. So I'll go ahead and start getting down, knock that quarter off, and see how pretty she turns out. Here's a little quick walk around progress. I went ahead and did the top edge of everything here. See, I had a little cut through that I misted some TransStar primer on. It's all looking really good. I did go ahead and do the quarter panel on this side, and I decided that I was tired of being bent over sanding this. Like, there's no need in that. I can just jack the car on up. It can go way up, and I'm going way up. Trunk lid's done. Quarter, Dutchman. I am going to go around my edges one more time, like all this stuff, but I have went ahead and touched that with 400 wet as I was sanding. Both sail panels, top on both sides. It's all looking really slick to me. I got to wash this again, see that little funky stuff there, but I had remembered on the other side I didn't want to keep bending over, so we're coming up in the air. I did the tops of my doors. I still need to knock that hard edge of primer off there. It's not a big deal. Cowl panel, got it done. I want to go through here with my fine Scotch-Brite again and knock those off. I mean, I did the tops, but you know, you can't get down in there with very much. And I want to scuff this up really well. I may not use a lot of sandpaper on it, just because if I get a lot of cut throughs there, I'll have to kind of spot prime it. And I'm doing the least amount of spot priming as possible. My edge and all that looks really nice, I think. Brian had showed me some tricks on that to knock it down and do it correctly. You can clearly see here I have not sanded that, but my guide coat on the front of this was just a dark gray primer that I had left over from when I did some epoxy on that bottom rocker over there. So it was in the gun still, so I just misted everything. So coming together, it's time to jack up and see what happens here. So here's part of why I love the wet sand. And I mean wet blocking here. I fixed this quarter 100 years ago, whatever it was. Everything shrinks, everything shrinks, everything shrinks. This has been blocked with a long block and 180 last time. Then it got its 2.5, 3 coats of 2K primer. There's a big red wasp. Now I'm blocking and my little spots are showing back up. So all I can do now is just continue blocking. There were several that have come out as I've gone along here, and it all is really nice. I cannot feel that with my hand right now, but it's enough that, hey, it'll show up in this primer. Keeping a sponge, and there's my long block with our 400. Wet her back down. There we go. And I'm about ready for a new piece too, but that's okay. So watch, keep your eye on those two. Keep on Xing it out. Super duper faint. They're still there. Might have to get a light out for y'all to be able to see that. she's gone. I'll keep trucking. Probably get me a new piece of paper. This is, it's made it through this far in the quarter. And every so often I'll take it off and flip it, but my flats are pretty dull. I don't have time to deal with that crap. So I've got the easy parts done. And it's been a pain because it's wet sanding. But I had a few cut throughs. I mentioned in this video I was not going to seal this car. And I've changed my mind. I'm going to seal this car. There's no way in the world. A lot of these that are bare metal right now, like that, down here, I'm going to shoot my TranStar primer over those and it'll set. But I don't have an issue painting over that. Doesn't bother me at all. This is solid red. You can see the red. But see my different layers of primers and fillers here that look kind of like, it's not really halos, but sort of. Sealer's going to take all that and make it, it's going to cover it up. So I'll get a good epoxy sealer going on. I'm really pleased with this door alignment to that fender. And I just basically blocked over it as much as I could. And you see where this line is here, that really fine edge. It just kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So now all I've got to do is take just a fine piece of, 400 that's used and run up and down it to make it all uniform. Same thing through here. I got to get in, dig that out. One thing about wet sanding, you see that little tiny rust spot there, like water goes where it wants to go. So at the end of every one of these sessions, this is probably day 3, I'll take my blowgun, blow everything out. But before this gets painted, those are going to go away. So that's got to happen. You got to be really diligent about finding all those little spots. And probably a lot of them will be, see that bolt head? It's a little rusty. And these drips down here with the yumminess of primer running down them. All that's got to be blown out, dried off super, super, super great. And then that rust, guys, it has to be removed. So I'll likely scuff it off, dry scuff it to the point of where it's gone. If it's bare metal, that's fine. The cars get an epoxy sealer, so it can go over bare metal. It can go over my little putty spots here. I still have to sand those off, but it can go over anything. And then it gives me one nice, it'll actually be a darker gray, probably closer to that, versus the light gray 2K that's on here. And I did that because when I shot the trunk jams and under the hood, I used a darker gray on that. So I want everything to kind of match. You see the difference in that dark gray in here. I have to still sand that line, but I'm going to set on my stool now and hand sand around this. It's going to be fun. And that bottom section, I had taped something off. I think I shot the bottom section of this rocker. You see it was a different epoxy primer that's dark like that. So once I sand this stuff off, I can probably even just scuff that bottom rocker because it's such a new coating compared to everything else. And then it'll be ready to seal when I seal everything. Next time you see this, I'll be putting sealer and color down. Hopefully that'll be soon. I think I couldn't get it any straighter. And it's got a nice finish for paint to adhere to. Hopefully you have followed along with the entire process on this, because it was pretty terrible when it started. More spots I need to get that sealer on. See, I just don't like it. I might could paint over it and be totally fine, but it doesn't matter how I do this project. Somebody out there would do it differently, and that's okay. We are all here to make them look better, right? I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch you next time. All right, Mopar people.